last meeting of the school year. I would like to remind everyone to conduct themselves as adults. If you feel the need to interrupt the meeting, you will be asked to leave. Our lovely Deputy Chuff is in the back, and he'll help us out with that. And so we thank him for spending time outside of his resource officer role within our district to be here with us tonight. Item 1B, approval of agenda/items for discussion.
I move that the agenda for the May 13th, 2024 regular meeting be approved.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Shaw. Any discussion?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask a question on item 5. So the superintendent evaluation for closed session, I understand Mr. Hughes requested one, but I guess from a parliamentary procedure, do we need to actually move that up into an action item to officially vote yes or no, and this in terms of approving the request?
So it is a motion that will be voted on prior to going into closed session.
I guess in the event that it didn't pass though, what would happen?
In the event that it didn't pass, then we wouldn't go into closed session.
So then doesn't it need to go in 2, because we are technically voting yes or no? I guess that's where I was trying to understand.
Well, you don't vote to go into closed session until you actually go into closed session.
I make a motion to have a vote to keep it as an open session.
Okay, we need to deal with the motion on the table, and then you can make an amended motion.
Okay.
There's also a motion that
Well, he
is
asked a question, there wasn't a
particularly related to
motion.
correct. So last meeting, I've learned a thing or two about us dealing with the motion that's on the table before moving on to a secondary motion. But there is a motion in the packet as it pertains specifically to the closed session as well.
Okay.
But item 5 is technically an acknowledgement that we would be going into closed session,
A vote.
correct?
No, it's a vote.
Okay,
Yep, and it'll be documented as a vote.
thank you.
Any further discussion?
Just to clarify, is that vote to keep it an open or a closed session? Or just to go straight to a closed session?
It reads that we would enter into a closed session. So obviously if you had, we would treat that like any other motion per se,
Okay.
where we have discussion and then a roll call vote.
The question I also have is that under closed session superintendent evaluation, it says recommended action. So I'm thinking that the action of going to a closed session really hasn't been approved yet. So,
Correct.
okay.
Until this motion passes. You are correct.
Okay, so then would we have an open one if it didn't pass or no?
In theory, we would not go into closed session, yes.
Okay. All right. I have a second motion.
Can we deal with the motion on the table first?
Okay, sure.
All
I
right.
thought we did. All right.
So let's please act on the original motion that was made by Mrs. Coleman and supported by Mrs. Shaw. And then Glenn, I'll circle back to you.
Okay.
Mr. Gogoleski.
Sorry, isn't that approving the agenda though?
It is, but we can't do a secondary motion until the motion that's on the table is actually approved or not.
So how do we add things to the agenda?
You're gonna have to make a motion to amend the agenda.
But if you already approved the agenda, how are you gonna do that?
You make a motion to amend the approved agenda.
Okay.
Mr. Gogoleski.
No.
Mrs. Shaw? Yes. Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
No.
Mrs. Blondeel?
I'm going to say no.
And I'm a yes.
Have some questions.
Glenn? You have a secondary motion?
Yes. I motion that we add to the discussion items regarding videotaping of our board meetings and ways to improve that, just as a discussion topic.
Okay, a motion to add a discussion topic on video recorded by Mr. Gogoleski.
I'll support.
Support by Mrs. Blondeel. Any discussion?
Just in regard to the taping of our board meetings, we were using Zoom, now we're doing a YouTube feed, but I'd also like to possibly suggest and talk about other enhancements.
Do you have any idea of what those enhancements?
Yes, like an additional camera, call to public camera, that kind of thing.
Do we have ideas of what those items are? These are just my
Like, well, an additional camera.
No, like what? The integration of an additional camera, like do you have a setup that you're requesting?
No. If anything, I'm requesting some technical assistance with that. I'd like to talk about it, and then we could have those that we employ here to help us out with that.
Okay. So this is a motion to add a discussion item on the video recording by Mr. Gogoleski, supported by Mrs. Blondeel. Any additional discussion?
I just want to understand, so Glenn, you're just looking to see if we can somehow enhance this, like recording, like a camera or two. Is that something, and I don't know, is that something that we're discussing it right now,
Yeah.
and we're not going to vote on it. Is that something that we can take to Mr. Usher, or obviously I guess to Mr. Hughes, who then will pass it on to Mr. Usher as far as like a cost? I'm sure there's obviously a cost,
Right, and that would be part of the discussion too, to perhaps maybe get some quotes for an upgrade or an improvement,
Okay.
and that's it.
So this would be a 3D?
Any further discussion? It
just
will be
to
item
clarify.
3D.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Mr. Gogoleski?
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw?
No.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Well, I don't have a problem adding more kind of cameras or things like that, but to be honest, I'm not comfortable adding something at this meeting that we could have had added prior. So I'm a no.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondeel?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, that motion passes. That will be item 3D, Mr. Gogoleski.
Yep.
Okay. Item 1C, consent agenda.
I move that the consent agenda for the May 13th, 2024 regular meeting be approved.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mr. Costa. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Gogoleski?
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondeel?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, that motion passes. Item 1D, superintendent's report.
Thank you. Couple of things, just housekeeping items. Yes, just a reminder that we are YouTube streaming this so that you won't see it up on the screen like you did with Zoom, but it is streaming at this point in time. The tech team in the back is making sure that's happening. Also, the chairs and the tables, if you moved any chairs and tables when you entered this facility tonight, please make sure you move everything back to where you found it. We do have students coming in first thing in the morning for AP testing, and that's why it's set up the way it is, so they're engaging in that work, so please do that. Next, I'll get up to the podium, and every year, as the board knows, we establish our board goals in July and August. Those goals were passed in October by the board. We have been putting information out all year to the public, either through Community Life or through our community update every Wednesday that I send out. Lots of different information that goes out to the public, as well as the board gets information from me on a regular basis on what's happening towards those goals. So the hopes, of course, is that anything you see tonight, you've already seen, at least in theory you've seen, or we've talked about it in some way, shape, or form. So there should be nothing of a surprise to you, but again, it's evidence of effort by myself, as well as all of the district staff, to meet the goals that the board established. So I'll walk up there and I'll talk from the podium. All right. Just make sure this works and goes backwards and forwards. All right. So the finance goal, obviously through finance committee, we talked about where we wanted to be towards the end of the year. Probably for everybody's consideration, the most important piece is the end of the year assessment piece. So what I share with you should address the assessment component of each of our goals. And most importantly, the board expects us to be financially rich, making sure that our finances are in order and that we're moving forward with all of the things that we need to accomplish here in the district. We've had finance committee meetings on a number of dates this year. We have another one coming up. I didn't put it up there to review budget before we do budget adoption in June. So we'll keep working in that direction. A reminder that the audits are always a year out, so this year's audit won't take place until later in the fall. In the fall, we did have the previous year audit, which we did get the unmodified opinion by Plant Moran, which means it's the highest rating you can get from an audit company for school finance. And so I thank Rachel and her team for all of that work, as we thanked her earlier in the year. Currently, we're sitting at we should end the year at a plus 22% fund balance. Keep in mind that that was due to the ESSER dollars that flowed into the district, those one-time dollars. We've talked many times about those dollars. Those dollars drop away at, this is the last year. We're using those dollars. So the out years we'll have to take and pay close attention to where we're going in regards to not having those one-time dollars sitting in our fund balance. And then we did review in February the budget to actual compared to the previous year. Where were we and how we were doing, and the board was involved in that process. We did finalize the contract extension for food service this year. That was taken care of. We felt good about that. All of our employee units have their contracts in play, and we've got all those taken care of, and we continue to work through that process. We did visitations in the fall. Rachel and our team, we go to every building in the fall, and part of that visitation is to talk about our financial picture. Where are we sitting? What are we doing and why we're doing it? To give our staff an opportunity to ask us questions about our financial picture so that they're in the loop. They shouldn't be surprised either when we have conversations about finances in the district. And then again, we'll finish our audit this year. We don't anticipate any problems with our financial audit. Moving on to building and site. Again, this is what we talk about building and site, all of our buildings and transportation and technology, all the things that we try to accomplish to make sure that we have the environment that is conducive to learning, not only for our students, but also for our staff. And then of course, our buildings to be used by our community. We've had a couple building and site meetings this year. We continue to take care of the district. And these are just some pictures of our awesome maintenance and utility staff who get all of the work done that we need taken care of throughout the year. And again, we appreciate them. We did extend the ABA contract. That's the company that is in charge of custodial services at our high school and our middle school. And then we take care of internally. The district is taking care of all the other buildings in the district, custodial wise. Had lots of refreshing environments over the last year. We've had our middle school gym refinished. We've added some signage around the building. We've got the pool opened again. Lots of comments from the pool, including Mr. Caroselli, who used to be the superintendent. It's called the Caroselli Aquatic Center. Because he was the superintendent, actually was the superintendent that hired me for high school principal at the time. He called me and he was just ecstatic. He's just thanking the district for our continued efforts to maintain the facilities, including his pool. So I appreciate having that conversation with him. Lots of sidewalk work. Yes, you see sidewalks that crack and heave, and we constantly work on sidewalk replacements a little bit at a time. And the high school weight room was taken care of this year. Again, thank you to, a strong thank you goes out to Frank Wozni. He is one of the teachers at our high school. He's also, as I announced last week, going to be an assistant AD with us next year. He proved his merit by organizing all that had to be organized with Matt and myself in the district to redo our weight room. So I thank him. I want to give him that plug, and Matt Marino and his team as well. And Rachel, of course, making sure that we had the money to take care of that. Bond projects continue. High school main stadium, I won't read all these. I will have this posted. This is a draft, basically, in case I have to make any changes between now and the June meeting. But after the June meeting, I'll have this posted on our website for the public to have access to. Lots of work around the district with our bond projects. You know, we finished, we did the auxiliary field a year ago, finished the athletic stadium, main stadium here at the high school. So that work continues. We've updated our baseball, softball fields. We've added restrooms out there. That was something we couldn't afford when we built the new high school back in 2003, and really upgraded our softball, baseball facilities, and added some chillers at the middle school and in this building. Refurbished those chillers, replaced them. And this summer, you'll continue to see work. This is our last year of bond projects, basically. So you'll see all of the work that's being done. Some of it you probably won't see, but you will see the tennis courts. We're already in the process of, we had a heaving tennis court on the east side of the tennis courts. Those courts are being replaced. The rest will be refurbished. Parking lot replacement continues. Lots of roof projects. So if you see people up on the roofs throughout the buildings for select roofs, they're just being replaced. And then the sinking fund we're using to do some boiler replacements, high school pool lighting, and that is actually ahead of schedule because we could do it. We did it when we had the pool shut down, and then round gym lighting will be replaced this summer. So all that work will continue. Sinking fund, the public can go on our website. As we've always said, we want to keep the public in the know of how we're spending our sinking fund dollars. That's the 0.5 sinking fund millage. That will come up for re-election, renewal, and increase to bring back the whole next spring, I believe, 26, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll have to be thinking about how we put that out to the public. The board will have to be involved in that process. But after we finish everything that we're currently doing, we'll carry a balance forward and continue to do some work that needs to be done. Technology department, they've had 1,537 tickets this year, and they've completed 98% of those tickets. So I, again, thank our technology department. I see Mr. Usher and Cameron in the back. Thank you for the work that you're doing. And the maintenance department continues to hit the tickets heavy, completing 98.5% of all the tickets put in for maintenance work throughout the district. We do have a technology, just a reminder here that we do have an outlined bond project schedule for technology. You see one of those tonight, replacing some computers throughout a couple buildings. That's part of our bond technology replacement schedule. That shouldn't be a surprise to you because that's been in place for a long time, and it's a 5-year rotation. If we can make it happen, of course, that's always our plan. Buses, you know that we've been purchasing buses, and then last board meeting you dealt with some vehicle replacement, and we continue down that road so that we have what we need to get the work done here in the district. Curriculum instruction, this is a highlight area. I think it's irrefutable as you look at this data that our students are performing, which means our staff is performing and setting high expectations. We know that the #1 discriminatory factor in public education is low expectations. The district continues to have high expectations for our students, and we continue to have high expectations for ourselves as employees. We've met a couple of times this year on curriculum issues. I've shared this with the community. The fact is, the only set of data that the district has to compare ourselves with other districts, apples to apples, is how our students perform on the MDE assessments, and therefore the final grades that MDE gives us. You'll see that all of our buildings in the last process for 23, all of our buildings either had an A or they met expectations, which is the highest rating that alternative ed program can receive. and all of our buildings are universally rated in the new system, which means that we don't need help. If you're less than universal, there's certain situations where you have to work closely with your local education service agency, or you have to hire outside consultants to come in and help you. We're not a district that needs that outside help based on how we're performing. And then, of course, the overall growth index, you can see it here. Always looking at improving the growth of our students, and that is year-to-year growth for our students. And we are always working to make sure that our students are growing. And that's more important than the proficiency, because when you look at a student that comes in potentially in 3rd grade, takes their first MSTEP assessment, they might have entered 3rd grade at a 1st grade level, right? So we have to look at what their growth is for the year. And they grow a year during their time with us? And that's what we're shooting for. And certainly, hopefully with all the interventions we have in place, our students are growing even more rapidly than that. And we're seeing that in our school district, and we should all be proud of that. Continue to have high rankings in different assessment or different ranking organizations that rank schools in the state of Michigan and in the nation. I've shared this, again, this should not be a surprise. Shared this recently from U.S. News and World Report. Again, our schools are doing very well. Keep in mind that MSTEP scores are always a year behind. Our kids are still engaged in MSTEP testing this week, as well as AP testing, as I said earlier. But if we look at the last set of data, you saw a lot of improvement across the district. Again, our kids are showing that they're getting it. Same here with PSAT and SAT. For the purpose of this year, we do use the Smarter Balance assessments, and these are the benchmark assessments offered by the state of Michigan. And you can see that if you look at the fall to the spring on each of these indicators, you're seeing a lot of growth there, which is what we want to see. They take the assessment and then they take it again in the spring, and we want to see that growth. So this helps us to determine where we are with our groups, including our subgroups of socioeconomic disadvantaged students, as well as our students that happen to have a disability. So always keeping an eye on how our kids are doing and are they showing that growth. Online learning is not an easy thing. A lot of people think, well, if my child just takes online classes, it'll be easy. It's not. Anybody who's ever taken an online class knows you have to be self-motivated, right? You have to push yourself. You have to sit down and do the work, just like you were in school. So this data just simply compares how our students that are taking online classes, whether they're taking 21F classes at the high school, where a high school student can take 2 online classes if they're requested, our legacy students that take online classes, and our Hartland Virtual Academy students. So you can see the success of these students based on the past courses. District leadership team, this is a group that Mr. Minsker leads throughout the district, made up of instructional coaches and teachers and principals and the technology director and the director of special ed. And that whole purpose of that instructional district leadership team is to help guide us in our professional development efforts, to help us understand what building to building are doing, so that we know if I'm a teacher at Village, I know what they're doing over at Creekside, or I know what they're doing at the middle school. So you try to synchronize all that and have those conversations to make sure that, one, and most importantly, our staff feels like they're being heard by us and that they have some say in the direction of the district. And so Dave shares a survey every year with the staff that are on that team, and you can see how the staff reported in regards to this process. Personnel goals. Again, we've had some meetings. School of choice continues to be an important component of the district. We have to continue to look at school of choice. We've had lots of discussions amongst the board and me with individual board members about why is it that our school of choice might fall off? Why is it that we're not seeing as much growth in the district as far as student numbers? There's lots of factors, but we do know this. We have to continue to be that district that people see as a premier school of choice school district, because we do depend on those students to fill our seats, right? So this just shows that, we're off by 24 compared to last year. I think we're getting some good numbers. Mr. Van Epps is starting to see some good numbers coming in for school of choice for next year, and we'll just keep working on that. I shared this with the community as well, just kind of give you a reference of where do our students go when they leave the district and where do they come from. Of all this data up here, I thought the most important piece, and I was very surprised, to be honest with you, I was shocked, because the state continues to lose students to out of state, but yet we had 17 students move out of state, but 45 students this year came in from out of state. I thought that was pretty interesting. So this just kind of shows you what happens. You can pick whatever, and I tried to just pick in this graph. I think I sent the board all of the schools where kids went to in all the districts. I picked this out just because these are the districts that are close to us, or these are the programs that would be in competition with us. So that's why I shared these numbers. The community has seen our student perception survey data. I've shared that with them. I shared that with the parents. This is that new My Student survey, My Student Voice survey that our students engaged in. There were 107 school districts. And what's good about this is we get some data that shares how our students are reporting they feel versus the other 107 school districts and the 58,000 students that our 1,816 students that took the survey are compared to. And we saw that in almost all instances, we're a little bit higher on average than the rest of the state or the rest of the 107 school districts that took this information or took this survey. We have to continue to look at our students. Engagement is how our students feel as far as, are they engaged in school? Do they feel comfortable engaging in the learning? And then, do they belong? Do they belong in our school? Are we providing an environment where every one of our students sees themselves in the curriculum that we're teaching? Every one of our students feels as if though they belong in our school system, regardless of their background. And so we want to make sure that we continue to ensure that our students feel like they're welcome in our school district every single day with every single teacher. Senior exit survey, again, 83% of our students responded to the first question, 88% responded to the second question, and we're just looking to make sure that our students feel like they belong. Or 83% said that they feel that they would recommend our school district, and 88% feel like they had a positive experience at Hartland High School. Our parent perception survey, this went out earlier in the year. I shared that with the community as well. The board has seen this as well. And again, our parents, 95.4% of our parents assign the district an A or B. So the majority of our parents, that certainly the ones that are taking the survey, are saying that they really, assign our schools an A or a B. Again, this is good data for us to know that we're on the right path. Staff survey is absolutely essential. Ms. Gregory took this over this year. Scott usually does it, Scott Van Epps, but since she's going to be filling his shoes as he is retiring, and we'll say more about that at the next meeting for Scott, but the fact is that she'll take this over. So we had a 59% respondent rate for our staff survey. We saw some really good numbers here, and we feel really confident that our staff feel safe. They feel like, they're proud to be an employee in the district, and those are good things. Our athletic survey, again, we want to make sure all of our programs that our kids are feeling, our students are feeling that they really enjoy, that they are heard, that they're having a good experience. So this was information that Brian Hassler put together. And certainly as he looks at these numbers, his job is to work with his coaches to address any areas that they have concerns with. New hires, we've had quite a few new hires in the district. This just shows that, including our resource officers. We have Deputy shelf in the back there, so we have these individuals in our buildings now. We always report student expulsions. These are the students that, when you look at our discipline handbook, our parent-student handbook, it is intervention-based just like academics. So behavior is intervention-based just like academic intervention-based. And part of the intervention-based is when you engage in some of these behaviors on the left, you're going to go to an expulsion hearing where you have to explain yourself. And we get an opportunity to talk with you and your parents and get the parents on board with how we're going to help you be successful in our school district. And so where most districts wouldn't do that, they might suspend you for 10 days and you come back. Part of our reentry process is you go through an expulsion hearing so that we can make sure we get you on the right track, put some things in play, and monitor that. Some common discipline infractions, again, sharing those with the board and the community to show that, 891 discipline infractions, versus, 929 last year. I was responding to a parent in an email recently, and I did a math problem and said, if we have 5,200 students times 184 school days for students, even 180, comes out to something like 936,000 opportunities for students to misbehave, right? Like if you think about that, 936,000 opportunities for students to misbehave, and we have 891 infractions that are recorded in these infraction areas. So again, our students are doing really well. Diversity and equity. This is one of those areas that we didn't do a lot with this year, except we kept moving forward with the status quo that we had established earlier on because, as you know, we're still working with the DOJ on what that extension agreement is going to look like. More to come on that. It's been a year of working with them to get to a point where we know which direction we need to take to move forward, but we do continue to address this issue. We've done quite a bit of work, continue to do quite a work with our students and staff. I won't read all this to you. Again, it'll be posted in the board. You have it in front of you. I've been working with EMU. I'm working with a partnership with EMU to try to create an environment in which we are partnering to bring student teachers to our district. And student teachers potentially that have different backgrounds than we're used to having, right? So maybe it's students that are a different racial ethnic than the Caucasian white community that we tend to think that is here in Hartland, but also looking for all different types of avenues to get student teachers into the school district because we know that it's difficult to find teachers right now. There's not as many students going in to teaching. I happen to have an opportunity today with Mr. Van Epps, Mr. Misker, Ms. Gregory, and we went to the high school. We have 42 cadet teachers. We started the cadet teaching program, if you recall, to try to start that process of planting the seed that teaching is a good profession. And we'd love to see more teachers and more of our students get into teaching. And so we got to go over there and interview the students, the second year students, and we had a great time. Asking them questions that we would ask a normal teacher that's sitting in front of us interviewing for a position here in Hartland and wishing them the best as they pursue their education towards teaching. And of course they made 4 connections, right? Now, when they finish their schooling and there's an opening, they can call one of us and say, hey, is there a chance that I might get an interview? And maybe I can get you an interview, but you got to sell yourself in the interview. I can't give you the job, right? So we can have those conversations. Partners in Progress continues, and this is one of our meetings earlier in the year. That has been really powerful for the district, and it's good just to know that we have the Crow Main Library, the Hartland Township, and then the Chamber to work together to try to do things in this community that are good for everybody. I put this in there just to remind the board that we do have this reason, respect, and responsibility. Lots of conversations today, even with the students, about what they think reason, respect, and responsibility mean as we were interviewing them. We started the Health and Safety Committee, so we did establish some goals here in regards to how things were going in that direction and what you wanted to see. We've had some meetings this year. What we've done this year, we continue to address the SCC safety consultant suggestions. If you recall that big report, we brought a consultation company in to look at all of our buildings and say, okay, here are some things you can do to create a safer environment. We're pretty close to finishing that list. I don't know if you remember how long that list was, but there are very few things that we haven't accomplished on that list. I'll pull that together at the end of the year and make sure I give you that, but there's very few that we haven't accomplished. Address the safety concerns that came up throughout the year, we've done. We've trained our staff in LS-based training. We've done the modules. We also trained everybody in the spring or in the fall. Everybody had training with help from the Livingston County Sheriff Department. We continue one more year of our partnership with Cheryl Stockwell and Hartland Township on the road patrol. The district will have to decide after this next year. We've got one more year on the contract, how they want to approach that. Do we want to continue that, or do we want to let that go in lieu of having our own security people on our campuses? And of course, we've had our resource officers and school safety officers. From what I understand from Ms. Gregory, they've all said that they plan to be back with us next year. So that's a good thing. So we're happy to have that. We've done all these things this year. Continue to work on all of our safety. Ms. Gregory came in the other day and said, all our drills are done, right? Yay, good, they're done. Ms. Gregory also surveyed our new security staff, and I sent this out to the public as well, 100% on everything. Every time I talked to them, they'd say, love Hartland, love Hartland. And I asked them the question on a regular basis, if someone were to ask you, are our schools safe? Every one of them says absolutely. Hartland Schools is a safe environment. Doesn't mean something can't happen, but that's how they feel. And then these are just some things that came back from our SROs and our SSOs in regards to the impact that they feel that they're having at school. And again, you see lots of positive comments from parents, and lots of positive. I had a story of a young person that the parent had called me last year as the school safety officer was coming online and was really concerned about her child because her child has a lot of anxiety and didn't really want a police officer there. But she said, my child loves our police officer, absolutely loves him, and talks about him, goes out and plays on the playground, throws the ball around, and she's like, it's been great. So that's a good story there. And then, of course, we continue to take care of other safety items. I know that there's been an ask about the Stop the Bleed that we added right here next to our AEDs. You'll see some legislation about making sure we have AEDs available. We meet that already. We have them everywhere, including our outdoor venues. We added the Stop the Bleed kits. We do have to do a little bit more training on those so people are aware that they're there. And that's the end of the evidence of effort report. All right, so thank you again for all your support as a board to make sure that we can create the environment that we've created for our students and staff, and then of course our parents to feel comfortable sending their kids here. Thank you.
I'd like to take a moment to thank certainly the administration of each building, the teachers, the staff at each building for allowing us and helping us to support our goals. And a huge shout out to Rachel as well. We posed some very difficult financial decisions this year that I think made her squirm a little bit, appropriately so, but I appreciate you being creative and finding creative solutions to what we bring to the table, and then looking for improvements in those that service us, longer term. And so I just want to call that out because it's very much appreciated, and sometimes we've challenged you to think way outside the box and outside of your comfort zone, and I just appreciate that. Moving on to item 1E, call to the public. Just a reminder that you will have 3 minutes. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. At the 2-minute and 30-second mark, I will hold up my handy dandy yellow folder that just gives you a line of sight that you have 30 seconds left. I would ask that you express yourself in a civil manner with due respect for the dignity and privacy of others who may be affected by your comments. I also see some little faces in the audience today, so just be aware that there's ears here tonight. So we will get started. First up, and I apologize, I might get this name wrong, but Dave Van Auker?
Hello. Got 2 items on my list tonight. A lot of stuff covered down the line, but we take them a little at a time, keep them simple and short. First item on my list is Article 8 of the Constitution. Reminder, encouragement of education, Section 1, religion, morality, and knowledge being necessary to good government and the happiness of mankind. Schools and the means of education shall forever be encouraged. That is your mission. You've all sworn an oath to uphold that Constitution. Hopefully you've read at least some of it, because I've met politicians who have not read any of it. All right. First object up for tonight, we're going to be discussing branding real quick. I'm familiar with Hartland. I've been on the inside, been on the outside, seen the good, the bad. I think this school has all kinds of potential, so I'm seeing a little bit of negative here, but I know what you guys are capable of, and that's part of why I'm saying this, because I'd like to see you do next level. All right, so branding. I think it's important for you to be thinking about this when you're hiring people and when they're doing their tasks. I can tell you just a little bit, some of this belongs in public, some not so much, but when you walk into the pool, you should not be seeing promotions of people from other schools as what's selling your program. This should be a picture of someone from our school, not from another school. Since I'm not naming names and naming schools, hopefully I'm maintaining privacy, even though this was put in the public eye. Now, during that time, we lost an experienced coach of 14 years, was replaced not successfully. We lost a program during this time. I don't think it's unrelated. It was replaced with a new program several years later, which is now promoting another school and other programs, not yours. Your brand is important. The advertisement on your programs here, you will notice 3 times that your school is mentioned and 9 times that the other school that you brought in here as experts. You guys have deferred your expertise to other people, and that decreases the quality of your program. This is the hybrid logo now that is a result of one of your programs that is not of our school. I don't know if they want me to discuss this in front of them or not, but just to show you something, because I've heard the discussion here, here's another hybrid logo. I don't think you guys like this. This is a doggle, half bulldog, half eagle. No bull, fly with the doggles. Not so great. This stuff has been published in your periodicals and put out for all to see. So when you're promoting yourselves, keep in mind that one of the things these guys do is they've got signs everywhere. If you want to beat them, you have to do better than them all the time. Even in their own brochure, they have more marketing on the cover of their brochure than you have. Product branding everywhere.
Please wrap it up, thank you.
No problem. Pretty much done. Made my point. Thank you so much for your time.
Jeff Scott.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jeff Scott. I'm the parent of 3 students within the Hartland School District, and I'm a 2024 school board candidate. I'm here tonight to talk once again about the superintendent evaluation process. You know, I've stood at this podium several times over the last year or so and half joked that you'd much rather lock the doors and keep all the parents out in the hallway. So I was only half surprised when I saw the agenda for tonight's meeting, which showed that you want to go into a closed session to discuss the evaluation. Well, you can't hide behind closed doors to discuss the fact that you have not followed your own protocol that you have adopted from the Michigan Association of School Boards last year. You can't lock us out to discuss the timelines you never set, the dates you never agreed to, the performance goals you never set, the benchmarks you failed to set. You can't lock us out to discuss the checkpoints you never agreed to or the individual responsibilities that were never assigned. I'm not pulling all of those out of thin air. Those are the protocols of the Michigan Association of School Boards superintendent evaluation that you adopted. And speaking about the MASB, let's take a look at their interpretation of the Open Meetings Act as it relates to tonight's meeting. From the MASB, quote, "A school board can only go into closed session to actually conduct the evaluation itself," unquote. Are you performing the evaluation tonight, the evaluation itself? By your own admission, you are not. Let's see what else the MASB has to say. Quote, "A board cannot call for a closed session in order to set or otherwise discuss the criteria upon which an administrator will be evaluated," unquote. The published detailed agenda for tonight's meeting literally says you are requesting a closed session to discuss, not perform, the evaluation. Again, forbidden under the Open Meetings Act as outlined by MASB. MASB continues, quote, "A board cannot call for a closed session simply to confer with one another in private regarding pending administrator evaluations," unquote. Do I need to continue? Any school board member that votes in the affirmative tonight to enter into closed session to discuss the superintendent evaluation is breaking the law and voting to close parents and taxpayers out of the process once again. The Open Meeting Act is quite clear that voting to violate the act opens up the elected official, the 7 of you, to personal liability. As late as 2021, the Michigan Court of Appeals ruled that while public bodies may be safe from lawsuits for substantially following the OMA, that does not extend to individual public officials who vote to violate the act. I know you guys would rather make up your own rules and do what you want and kick us all out, and you probably will tonight, but just remember you're accountable to everyone in this room and the thousands of taxpayers and parents at home. You're accountable to the laws of the state of Michigan that require that you act with transparency. So I hope you do the right thing and vote no on going into closed session. Failure to conduct business
Please finish up.
in front of this community is an affront to this community, and we will not tolerate it. Thank you.
Angela Yarber.
I'm Angela Yarber, Hartland Township resident and school board candidate. One of my platforms is safety, and while I have several improvements for safety that I think the board should consider, tonight I will focus on one. That improvement is the installation of floor locks. These are locks slipped into the floor or bottom of a door that prevent an armed intruder from breaking the glass on a door or window and reaching in to turn the handle of a doorknob, thus gaining access into a classroom. I am an elementary school teacher in another district, and my students practice dropping the lock into place in case they would be closest to the door in the event of an emergency. At about $75 per lock, floor locks are inexpensive and effective safety precautions. A common brand name is Night Lock. Deputy Todd Hawk of the Oakland County Sheriff's Office is the School Resource Officer Training Coordinator for all Oakland County schools. He supports the use of night locks. He told me, I was one of the first responders to the Oxford mass murder incident. I have firsthand knowledge and experience that those locks work. Deputy Hawk further explained to me that the Oxford teachers had gone through ALICE training through the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, and part of the training included how to use night locks. He says, when the shooting started, the teachers' training kicked in and they saved thousands of students and staff. The combination of the training they received and the night locks is the reason why so many students were unharmed. Since most districts in Michigan use floor locks, I assumed Hartland did, and that my children were as safe as my husband and me in our workplaces. Then I learned Hartland did not have floor locks. When I emailed Mr. Hughes and the board about this in February of 2023, Mr. Hughes told me that locked doors are best and that floor locks go missing. In 5 years of teaching in classrooms with floor locks, I have not found this to be true. The lock is kept secured in a plastic box on the wall so that it is accessible but protected. Students know it is for their safety and that it is not a toy. Mr. Hughes also told me that a special tool is needed to open doors which are floor locked, which seemed to be a negative for him. I think needing a special tool to access a floor locked classroom is a good thing. That means an armed intruder whose goal is to maximize damage cannot easily do that. I think our children and the staff in each classroom in Hartland schools are worth a $75 investment. Don't you? Please implement the installation of floor locks in Hartland classrooms. I have a sample display if anyone would like to see it after the meeting.
Darcy Donikowski.
Good evening. My name is Darcy Donikowski. I am a Hartland resident and have a second grader at Lakes. I am here tonight to call to action the reading and intervention programs and the lack of data collection and reporting and follow-up that is completed. My goal here tonight is to have the current process reviewed and to develop a plan going to ensure that these kids, parents, and teachers are supported and set up for success. My son has received additional supports for reading since the beginning of first grade. To date, he is still not at the set expectations for second grade reading. At the recommendations of Lakes Elementary, my son was tested for a learning disability and ADHD. My son passed both test assessments with no diagnosis, meaning my son does not have ADHD, nor does he have a learning disability. So I call to action. Why is he still not at the appropriate reading level? My second grader has been pulled every day from his classroom since the beginning of first grade to receive one-on-one and small group assistance. While I am very grateful that the district offers these supports, I am very concerned on the process and success of this program. When the recommendations from Lakes Elementary was presented to us parents to see if my son had any deficiencies that would interfere with his learning, we acted upon it the same immediately, to later be presented with a reassuring result that he was just an average second grade boy. When I started to ask administrators for evaluations and checkpoints on my son's success and progress, I was met with many obstacles. From progress reports with minimal feedback, such as small group in the commentary of his reading portion, and runaround answers of no reporting is captured. When I requested additional explanation from the principal at Lakes Elementary, it was stated, and I quote, "I hope I am being clear when I explain that record keeping and data collections does not take place during our data meetings." The principal further explained that the data collection meeting is that they discuss the student's progress based on teacher observations, any progress monitoring tools that may have been used by the teacher, and district math and ELA assessments, including the DRA. None of these data collections have been provided to me in any form outside of a progress report, just like any other student receives. To date, I have never been told if my son's interventions have changed or been altered in any way. We are unaware if he will even reach the goal of second grade reading at the end of this year. We are now less than 2 weeks away from summer, and yet another year has been full of interventions with no proof of success and no plan of how he will graduate from these reading interventions. If the school is so quick to assess my child, why are we not looking at the succession of the actual intervention programs and monitoring the progress of the children involved? I hope the school board takes my concerns back as a group to see how the interventions of these children can be tracked, monitored, and reported on to ensure that children involved do not continuously stay behind compared to their peers. Thank you for your time.
Carol Hall.
I'll try not to cry. My name is Carol Hall, and I've been an educator in Hartland for 25 years. I have loved working in this district during my time here, and I've always worked hard to make sure all our students feel supported regardless of their background or identities. In the last year and a half, my heart has been breaking for the teachers, students, and their families, and there has been an increase in hateful comments and threats towards minority groups. I have witnessed hateful and vicious comments made about students with special needs. These comments were offensive and damaging to all students and their families. These students have the right to be part of our district and supported in a fashion that allows them to grow and know they're supported. I have also seen our minority students of color be harassed and mistreated. Bathrooms are being vandalized with racial slurs. We as educators and as a district have the responsibility to combat hatred at all opportunities. Recently, LGBTQ+ students and their families have been the targets of hateful comments and misinformation. The school staff has been forced to remove any reference to safe spaces in our classrooms. LGBTQ students have been present in our district since it was first formed, and it is our responsibility to support and protect them as we do for all our students. They deserve a safe space in our schools. These students want and deserve to be recognized, supported, and accepted by their school district. Our most recent staff survey indicates that teachers are not happy with the current conditions and ideas being presented by members of the school board. This is the lowest satisfaction rate reported since 2007. I have recently witnessed the loss of kindness, caring, and compassion for students who are part of minority groups. I urge the board to listen to the staff members and increase support for staff in the future. This district should not tolerate hateful behavior, and we should be working together to provide a safe and supportive environment for all our students, no matter their identity. My hope for all my colleagues is to be able to weather this storm that is currently raging around you and continue to fight for our students. We should combat hate, misinformation, and discrimination and ensure the school is a safe and welcoming place for all students. The district and the school board are no longer protecting our most vulnerable students, and you need to do better. I would like to leave you with a final thought. Be careful who you try to marginalize, as it might end up being someone you love. Thank you.
Barbara Tonkovich.
Thank you once again for letting me speak. Is the ACLU a communist or left-wing organization? The only reason I'm speaking on this is because it was mentioned last month. The ACLU organized a 9-point plan to resist established law and turn America into a network of freedom cities that resist the vote of the American people. Conservative agenda. The ACLU hopes to turn America Democrats blue by forcing its liberal, socialistic, and communist agenda upon all America. Is the ACLU evil? Sure, the ACLU has done a few good things, but their bad things far outweigh the good. They have an agenda that is anti-ethical to the USA. This organization was started at the turn of the last century and is today perpetuated by communists, socialists who wish to destroy just about everything that makes our nation great, only to have it remade on a communist socialist model. This aim of the ACLU is anti-ethical to all our interests as well as our culture and history. The American Civil Liberties Union is based upon a noble purpose. However, they often work against that very purpose due to a radical interpretation of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. They are an arm of the radical left. Their claim of being nonpartisan is far from showing impartiality. It is full of attempts to reform American society according to the ideals of liberalism. For the past few decades, the ACLU has been on a major crusade to destroy Christianity in America, promote filth under freedom of speech and expression, vigorously defend the homosexual culture of death. How often these communist goals have been implemented to promote democracy and protect your civil rights. It's time to recognize the ACLU as the American Communist Lawyers Union. What the ACLU doesn't want you to know, from its inception, encouraged political and moral anarchy. The aims and principles of its founder, Roger Baldwin, who wrote in 1935 that communism is the goal. In its early days, the ACLU was not shy about making known its agenda. The American Civil Liberties Union may be definitely classified as a communist front. At least 90% of its efforts are expended on behalf of communists who come into conflict with the law. Its main function is to protect communists in their activities of force and violence in their program to overthrow the government. It's exactly what we're seeing on the campuses today. They don't care about Hamas. They want to destroy the USA. And the last thing is, the only way to get this changed is through Jesus Christ, accepting him as your Lord and Savior. Let him change your heart. This will all go away. Thank you.
Alex Yarber.
Thank you. My name is Alex Yarber. I am a parent. I have got two sons who are graduates, and my daughter is in the 9th grade. She has spoken a couple of times in front of this board on the issue of boys being in her bathroom. Not a whole lot's been done about it. I'm just disappointed about that. We've got police reports to back that up too. So this isn't misinformation as some people would like to accuse us of. This has actually happened, and I've got the police reports that I'll share with you if you like. This is not an effort for me to prompt any kind of additional action from the board because nothing's happening. I'm frustrated with that. This is really an example of a citizen who is using this forum and YouTube, thank God, to let the public know what's going on, and that's my goal tonight. The last time my daughter spoke, we felt uncomfortable with the way that the meeting went. So I thought, well, I'm gonna FOIA some information. And so for the next day, I got some information, and this was an email that Chuck Hughes sent to the rest of the board. And I'm just gonna read it to you. I followed up today where needed and wanted to put some things on the record. The narrative from many, and I'm assuming that you're talking about my daughter. The narrative from many seems to be that we have an open bathroom policy where all restrooms are available for all students regardless of circumstances. I think that might be true. This issue was addressed at the Health and Safety Committee meeting on December 15th, 2023, and in a follow-up email to the entire board on December 19th, 2023. I never heard anything about that. You have each been apprised that this is not the case in any way. Currently, boys must use the boys' restroom and girls must use the girls' restroom, with the only exception being those students who have worked with staff to note their situation regarding their gender identity and/or preferences. So that is the case. That is the case, because if you have a situation, you can be in there. You could be a boy and you could be in the girls' bathroom if you have a situation, whatever that is. And if I'm a girl and I'm in the bathroom using it and there's a boy next to me, how do I know if that boy has a situation? That's not right. That's not right. We demand some changes. The district is flirting with disaster. There was a case in Virginia where a boy was wearing a skirt in a girl's bathroom, raped a girl. They reassigned him to another school. He did the exact same thing at the other school. He's been convicted of it. So I came in tonight hoping I'd hear something about the Health and Safety Committee about this topic. But in fact, probably more appropriately, it's going to be the superintendent's evaluation at the end of the meeting. This is information that we don't hear about, and we'd like to have some better information coming from the board and from the district. The weekly superintendent meeting is carefully tailored to meet your needs and not the needs of the community. We would like that to change. Thank you.
Julie Ohashi. Not here? Okay. Moving on to item 1F, committee and building reports, starting with Mr. Costa.
Thank you, Mrs. Blaylock. Real quick note, Mrs. Connolly just wants to say what a wonderful year the HVA and Legacy students and staff have had. She's very proud of everyone. We did have a Health and Safety Committee meeting back in April. I know the agenda has been posted, but a number of things, pests and herbicides, asbestos plans, radon, water testing at Village. We had a lengthy discussion about that. It was good to hear that our Livingston County Health Department and our consultants have deemed that water is safe to drink. And then there was, again, speaking to the call of the public, there was talk and conversation around restroom remodels and what that would look like as far as at the high school going to like a single stall type of situation where there would be kind of washroom, like your sink in one area, and then there would be closed stalls in another. We had good conversation. We talked about possible costs and when that would go in. We didn't get definitive numbers, but it'd be something that I believe Mr. Hughes said that we would have to reach out to the community for some type of bond or something along those lines, because we would be looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it was something that was brought up. So that would have been our Health and Safety Committee. And that, I would also like to say to our staff, I know last week was Teacher Appreciation Week. I cannot say enough about how wonderful the teachers are in here in Hartland and how the great things they've done. Congratulations to all of you on a end of the year coming up, and I appreciate everything you've done. I'm all set.
Thank you, Mr. Keller.
All right, thank you. Just one, I guess, housekeeping item is, I've been made aware of a rumor, I guess, that there's some note passing by the board, so just without accusing anybody, because there's no video at this point to check, but just as a reminder to all of us, make sure there's no notes that are being passed during the meeting. And on a positive note, I just want to talk about farms. Unfortunately, Mrs. Cheney has decided to retire, and so she's definitely going to be missed. I know she's not here today, but I wanted to thank her personally for her efforts and service to the district and the community and all the families and children here. Again, she will be missed. Congratulations to Mrs. Brisky, also not here today, but I'm quite confident that she will make a fantastic choice as a successor for Mrs. Cheney, so I'm happy that Mrs. Brisky will carry that baton and she'll do a great job. Also like to echo Mr. Costa's comments about teacher appreciation. Thank you to all the staff. I know I've met many of you in farms, and as we continue to expand our program visiting the schools. I look forward to having an opportunity to work with and meet more of you. So again, thank you for all of your service. There are several fun upcoming events as we close out the year for the kids. I'm sure that all the kids and farms are excited for field day and beach day, so enjoy those, and also have a great summer break to everyone. So again, thanks for a great school year, and congratulations on all of your successes academically and also athletically, everything else. So thank you for the staff at Farms for allowing me the opportunity to be your advocate this year, and I know we're kind of closing out the year, so again, thank you for that. Safety Committee, we did meet recently, as Mr. Costa touched on. I won't go into a lot of detail because I know part of the discussion will occur later when we talk about policies and things, so I'll table some of that, but for the community's awareness, yes, we did have some discussion on bathroom, locker room policies, as well as some other items such as radon, water, asbestos, many other safety items that were brought to the attention of the community, or by the community. So we did have some good discussions on those. I guess one thing that I did want to touch on kind of for the board, and I did share some information with all of you about it, was a report that was shared by or written by Eagle, which is the entity that I guess governs the health and safety. So we're using NOVA obviously as the company, and I know they've been working with the district since 1995. I guess I just wanted to highlight with the board that there was, this is a peer-reviewed report that 4 individuals wrote, and it's not my personal opinions, but I guess I have some concerns with some of the information that Eagle wrote in the report, and there was actually 13 items that they cited as either being missing from the closure report or actually had incorrect information, and I guess I just have some concerns that, on the report that was issued isn't the best foot forward by the district, so I hope we can have some further discussion on that, and I made the request to actually participate in that meeting and look forward to further discussion on that, and I guess I think that's all I want to have. Thanks.
Mrs. Blondale?
I did not have any committee meetings, but great job to the staff, and sadly another year is coming to a close, and congratulations to the students that are graduating, and appreciate everyone's effort. Thank you.
Mr. Kowalewski?
Thank you. I've had the good fortune of being able to visit Lakes Elementary several times this school year, and I can tell you that one of the concerns that was expressed to me, and this is something that Mr. Hughes, you did explain pretty well in an email, regarding the evaluation of class sizes, teacher, personnel, staff like that. We had a parent up here talking about reading and looking for metrics and measurables, and as good of a job as this district does, there's always, it's just a matter of ongoing continual improvement. I think one of the big issues that, especially for the elementary schools, is something that we need to tackle would be class size and the number of teachers that we have, and trying to keep the lower level classes to more of a minimum as opposed to a maximum. And I'm hoping that in the future here, as we get through the school year, as we discuss items during the summer, that we can maybe take a good look at that and try to see different ways that we can improve that. I think that could definitely have an impact and an effect on various issues that we have with some of our elementary schools. So with that, I hope that the teachers had a great school year. I hope they have a great next year after they kind of readjust and recharge over the summer. Big congratulations to all of the students that are graduating this year and their plans for the future, whether it involves college, trade schools, internships, whatever. Big congrats to you, you did it, and I hope that you have great success in the future. So with that, that's all I had.
Thank you. Mrs. Shaw? Thank you. I was the only board member present at the Building and Site Committee meeting that was held last month. I know Mr. Hughes already touched on a lot of the building projects that are coming up, so I won't reiterate those that we discussed in the meeting. The plan is to have Nova Environment do radon testing in the district in December, which is the time frame in which they recommended that testing be completed. So that will happen over Christmas break when students are not in our buildings. And basically, that cost is about $14,000, and then we will go from there once we get results. It'll, be sometime in early 2025 we'll get those results. So, I had the opportunity once again to meet with Mr. Reckitt Village. It's always fun. I have big kids. It's fun to go into buildings where there are little kids. Things are winding up there too for the end of the year. I know field day is tomorrow. And it's always fun to see Mr. Stan interact with the kids there at Village and Creekside, and he's always willing to show me a note he has in his pocket or show me a picture that he took of a student. So it's just so heartwarming to see those relationships are continuing to grow with him. And he said this is definitely the favorite job he has ever had. So I think that says a lot. And I think that's it, but congratulations, class of 2024. I say that as a board member and as a mom.
Mrs. Coleman, follow that. Okay. Middle school. Mr. Howerton and I haven't been able to connect recently, but he did send a few updates to me. There's a group of creative writing pen pals at the high school and at the middle school that have been writing letters to each other all semester, and they finally got to meet in person just last week, I believe. I hear it was pretty cool to see the students interacting, talking about writing, and just kind of being peers with each other, so it's a great connection there with those creative writers. Last week at the honors night, the middle school honored over 230 students for their academic and other successes. So it was really a great night. Lots of happy families and proud parents. This one too. Let's see, the middle school archery team took top 20 in the nation in target shooting and 3D shooting at the National Archery Tournament in Louisville about a week or so ago. So congratulations to them. Let's see, the next step for the Optimist International Oratorical Competition was also about a week ago, and the Galiciagi took third place in the state district level, earning a $1,000 scholarship. We're all very proud of you, Nick. Great work, and keep it up. Congratulations to the middle school boys and girls track team, who won the combined championship at a recent it's the Southeastern Michigan Showcase of Track Talent. It's a huge track event that I believe is about 19 years in the running. Our girls took first place. The boys took fourth place against 22 other teams that were competing. There were many impressive performances, including yet another school record in the girls' 400-meter dash by Hannah DePestel. Mr. Howerton also asked me to extend his sincere thanks on behalf of the HMS staff to our amazing PAC and the families for all your kindness and gifts during Staff Appreciation or Teacher Appreciation Week, which was earlier this month. The staff certainly felt the love, and they much appreciate your efforts. I also had the pleasure of sitting in on the Senior Center Advisory Council at the beginning of the month. With my last update, I mentioned that the center had purchased a new vehicle, or new to us, it's a used vehicle, but new to the center. So you may see this new Pacifica riding around with its senior activity center logos on the side, offering transportation services to our members. Kim Konarski continues to do her hard work at applying for and securing grants for much needed funding locally through United Way and other resources. She works very hard at that and is usually quite successful for the center. Plans are underway to accommodate a much debated second pool table at the senior center. So if you're a member and you're interested in playing pool, they're going to be trying out a second pool table, at least for a few months. And as always, there are tons of upcoming events and many recent successful events. They have something for everybody. There's a new pickleball tournament, all sorts of things going on. They're going to be putting on a senior prom, which I think is awesome. And then they will also be represented in the Memorial Day Parade. I did not attend, I didn't have, how do I want to say this? There was one committee meeting that I could have attended and I was unable to because I had the pleasure of chaperoning the middle school band and choir field trip. I have an entirely new respect for middle school teachers. I don't know how they do it. I did it for about 36 hours and that was about all I could take. So congratulations to the class of 2024 and to our teachers and staff and administration for another great school year. You're in the home stretch, only one more Monday. Thank you.
Thank you all. I will keep mine short and sweet. At Creekside, we have embarked on a search for a new principal. Mr. Pumford has been excellent in filling in a pinch at Creekside, and although we wish he would stay with us forever, I think he might retire for real this time and spend some time with his family. He might miss us again, and you never know, come back, but we will be conducting interviews for that over the next several weeks to have a candidate surely identified well beyond before school starts. We will be the top 10 students, obviously in the class of 2024, once announced. We'll recognize them at the next board meeting to ensure that they receive the accolades that they deserve. With getting out so early in May, it makes it difficult to catch them while they're in school, and so we'll do that at next board meeting. And then I just want to remind the personnel committee, it's been a whirlwind since our last meeting, but I would like you guys to debrief on the staff survey and create some action items around that as a group, and then bring them back for recommendation to the table, to the rest of the board. And then perhaps we can incorporate those in some of our board goals moving forward. That so ends my committee and building reports. Moving on to item 2A, LESA budget 2024-2025. I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approves the LESA 2024-25 budget as presented.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, support by Mr. Costa. Any discussion?
I was able to have a lengthy conversation with Mr. Hubert, and I support this 100%.
Any further discussion? Mr. Hubert is fantabulous to talk with if anyone gets the opportunity. Breaks everything down very well. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Gugaleski?
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw? Yes. Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Blundell?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, that motion passes. Item 2B, special education millage renewal.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approves the special education millage renewal as presented.
Support. Motion by Mr. Costa, supported by Mrs. Coleman. Any discussion on this item?
I have just a quick question, just for clarification. On the actual resolution, item number 6, it states that this board desires to express its support for a LESA special education millage renewal and restoration to be voted upon an election to be held on Tuesday, November 5th. So essentially, I just want to clarify that the voting yes for this, we are expressing our desire to put this out in front of the public and let them vote on it. And that's all it implies, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion?
Talked at length with Mr. Huber about this one as well, and I support it.
All right, hearing none, Mr. Gogoleski,
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw. Yes. Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Costa,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mrs. Montiel,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, that motion passes. Item 2C, LESA Parent Advisory Committee Representatives.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent and the Director of Special Education, appoint Sarah Lewis and Angela Workman as the Hartland Consolidated Schools representatives to the LESA Parent Advisory Committee for a 3-year term.
Support. Motion by Mrs. Coleman, supported by Mrs. Shaw. Any discussion?
I have a quick question. Just so you could help us understand, what is the process for selecting candidates for that position? How does that happen? How does that work?
Yeah, one of these individuals, I believe it's Angela Workman, is currently on the committee, and that expires. The other person decided they didn't want to continue. So Mrs. Lewis has also, usually they're parents with children that have special needs. And so as they're talking with Adrian and the staff, they're expressing an interest to be a part of it.
Okay. Yeah, I was unaware of how that actually takes place and how those individuals actually get nominated for it, so thank you.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, so would a parent have an opportunity to request it in the future? Or how, I guess how does
I
that?
think through Adrian, Dean,
Okay,
and I would assume that they would be a parent familiar with the needs of that population.
okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Gogoleski,
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw. Yes. Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Costa,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mrs. Montiel,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, that motion passes. Item 2D, district radio upgrades.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent and the Director of Operations, approves the district radio upgrades as presented.
Support. Motion by Mrs. Shaw, supported by Mrs. Coleman. Any discussion?
I just want to thank Mr. Marino, but I don't think he's here today. I know I had lots of questions for him, so Matt, if you're listening, thank you for clarifying all those points. I did have one more question for you, but I guess, it doesn't affect my vote, so I'll follow up with you later. Thanks.
Yeah. And also, I did have a question answered by Mr. Moreno, so that was good. And I do understand the importance of communications. This is a big safety item in all honesty. That's what it boils down to. So, thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Gogoleski,
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw. Yes. Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Costa,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mrs. Montiel,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, that motion passes. Item 2E, computer replacement purchase, 2020 bond.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent and the Technology Director, approves the computer purchase as presented.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, supported by Mr. Costa. Any discussion?
Thank you to Mr. Usher for answering all the questions. Again, appreciate it. And then just one general question, I think it goes for Rachel, I'm guessing. So, Mr. Usher had mentioned when we were kind of talking lease versus buy, that one of the stipulations with bond money is you cannot lease equipment, is that?
That's correct. You can't use bond money to make lease payments.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Gogoleski,
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw. Yes. Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Costa,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mrs. Montiel,
Yes.
I'm a yes, that motion passes. Item 3A, item for discussion, 24-25 parent-student handbook modifications.
One second, let me get to the pages.
Can Scott talk real quick about it, since it's a
Absolutely.
discussion item? Scott, you want
Scott,
to
you
talk
wanna-
about that?
Thank you. Yeah, briefly, this is a process that we have used for the past couple decades. It starts in earnest in January. Building principals, assistant principals, department heads, anyone who has an application or information in the parent-student handbook does a review. For example, this year our elementary group, who we've always asked to work together to collaborate on the elementary handbook, did a little more extensive work, came up with a discipline rubric like the high school, as did the intermediate school. Again, to bring a little more clarification to the enumerated items, if you will, in the handbook, and also more transparency for parents to see what guides decision-making in terms of a disciplinary outcome for a violation of any one of those items. So that was a biggie. There are some things that go across the board for all handbooks, such as, well, I removed from the book for Title IX, as Kate Gregory will handle that as a compliance officer, and other language on the statement of compliance in the front of the book, as you can see in your pack of information.
I think it's also important that the board understands the reason why it comes to you every year is in essence board policy, right? Because you're adopting the handbooks, so this is board policy, no different than you adopt the high school curriculum guide, that becomes board policy. That's how we practice based on your approval.
I'm missing a sheet, but Mrs. Blondeel will have some edit suggestions to some of the language in board policy that she will get to me, that I'll get to the board as soon as possible on the item of restroom use protocol. And as soon as I have that, I will disseminate it, as soon as we have some conversation.
Right.
And if anyone is interested in any further discussions, obviously before next board meeting around that, whether that's with council or so on and so forth, please just reach out to me so that I can set that up.
I was going to actually reach out to you on this one, because I know that this is new restroom use protocol. I'm just wondering if, because a lot of these other ones, it sounded like they came out of like a committee of a number of people. This did not come out of committee, correct? This is something that kind of is being spearheaded by.
Well, it was presented to committee, and then I, during the health and safety committee, took what was presented at the original committee meeting after doing some work, talking with that original school district, talking with council, then brought it back to safety committee. It was near the end of that meeting, and so this is what came out of that meeting, yes.
Okay, because I'm just like, I know we have a month to talk it over and have more conversation, which is great, but as I look at it, I'm just wondering, because is it necessary or appropriate? I'm just wondering if it does it do anything? And again, I'm wanting to have more conversation with you and the other board members about like what they see this does, because quite frankly, I'm struggling with what it does differently than what we currently have. So I look forward to conversation.
Mm-hmm. And you will connect with me offline?
Yes.
Okay. Any further, obviously, you have the next 30 days, so if you have edits to anything in the handbook, please get them to me. Like I said, as soon as Michelle gets them, I'll put it out so that everyone's kind of aware of the alternate language.
Okay, I do have a quick question.
Yep.
Why is this policy being relegated to a handbook? This is a district policy, and it should be elevated to a policy level, not for a handbook.
So we can certainly take that to consideration. I think that it's probably, as we have expectations of our students, I think we still need to maintain it in the handbook, because that's ultimately what we refer to from a student expectation standpoint and what's adopted. I mean, we adopt this handbook obviously as policy, and so I don't necessarily want to remove it. I wouldn't recommend to necessarily remove it from this, even if we do something from a policy standpoint.
Well, we do have policies, we do have handbooks. They serve two different purposes, and something this important and this controversial, I think, deserves a place in the policy manual that covers the entire district. Not just the high school, or not just the high school and middle school, but covers the district.
Okay. I can send that out along with Mrs. Bondiel's revisions. All right.
Sorry, while we're on this subject, I also wanted to just, maybe this will not survive the language, but I was trying to get a better understanding of the wraparound meeting and kind of what is that process, and, you know, just, is there any more commentary? Because it wasn't 100% clear to me what we would do in that setting.
Mm-hmm. I think from a high level, I'm happy to have, to work with Mr. Hughes to document something, but I think from a high level, that's a wraparound meeting with the school administration, parents, family, to understand the true needs of the child and the student. That could go well beyond what's kind of outlined in that particular area, but it also allows our administrators to dig a little bit deeper about the needs of that individual.
So is there a outcome or criteria? So I guess, is it basically going to be used to determine eligibility? Is that how I
I think it would be used to determine the resources needed, and then part of this, I guess we would be remiss if we didn't talk about this, is making sure that we understand the transition of bathrooms that we had discussed at safety committee meeting, and making sure that we had gender neutral bathrooms throughout the building versus just in the office or in the counseling office. Getting from the 3rd floor at Eagles Nest to the 1st floor in the few minutes of passing is difficult. And so I think it would be understanding and outlining the availability and accessibility as well.
Okay.
All right. Item 3B, new and
Sorry,
revised.
I thought we were only talking about the bathroom, right? I had some questions on some of the other changes that Mr. Van Epps kind of went through. So, for the parent-teacher conferences, just as a general question, how are the parents made aware that they have the opportunity to have one? I guess, how do we communicate that? Besides, is it just in the handbook, or is there
I
any
received
other
emails from all of
communication?
my,
I've always received emails from
so I received 2 this
teachers,
year,
correct.
2 different buildings.
But is there official, I get them too, but I'm asking, is there sort of an official
Process or
notification, or is
procedure?
it basically up to the teacher to make that, make people aware of that? Or do we as a district say, because I don't recall seeing sort of a district-wide one, so, but I could have missed it. So I'm just asking if we, as general practice, make that.
Well, I would lean on Dave or Chuck to get involved as well, but at the building level, there's a window of time. Teachers are responsible for reaching out to parents, communicating that they're available for conferencing. You know, we've moved away from that designated evening because not every parent wants to attend, or perhaps you got greater volumes of parents at the elementary level, and it makes it that 5-minute or 10-minute window a little bit less than effective, perhaps.
I wonder if we can put some standard verbiage, you know, like in the elementary level it gets sent home, but in the middle school, high school level, you have you download it from the system. And so I just wonder if we put a little note, like a standard note, actually on the report card, that outlines that as well. Like some standard verbiage.
Yeah, maybe
On report
weekly
cards?
letter,
They're electronic
beginning
now.
or something.
Yeah, they can go on
Again,
the weekly letter,
I
but
know
I
we
wonder
do it,
about
but-
on the actual report card.
Well,
Because I would
report
assume
cards-
that people are looking at that.
They're electronic.
Yeah.
You have to, again, go seek them out to, you know what I mean? It's,
Yeah.
I
And I
mean,
would
it could be a
assume that
way.
the parents that are going to seek, that are downloading their child report
That they would
card
see it,
have
right.
a different level of effort and interest in perhaps meeting with teachers.
and maybe an
administrators,
introductory email from principals at the beginning of the year
Yeah.
to families that could be, you know, part of the bullet points that they provide to resources that are available for parent, you know, maybe it could be in that introductory email.
I would
You want to talk about
suggest,
it at staff?
yeah, I would suggest you let us send something to the board that says, we heard you at the board meeting, you want some different ways to get this out. Here is the selection of opportunities that we've come up with. How's that sound?
Yeah, it sounds good. Again, I bring it up, I personally received them, so I know we do it. But it surprises me the number of comments that I get from people in the community, like, you're not having parent-teacher conference. It's like, well, yeah, we are. Are you checking your emails? So again, just more about awareness. So that's what I wanted to ask on that one. The next question I have was on the harassment changes. There was I think a request to add kind of some verbiage around the DOJ disclosure. Can you kind of clarify, are we authorizing the reporting to the DOJ with this particular change, or is it, again, just public awareness? I know Mr. Hughes in his previous weekly reports has made people aware, but with the addition to the handbook, is there any significance to that language?
Not authorizing, but transparency to the parents that a district investigation or a report of harassment may be subject to disclosure by the U.S. Department of Justice. May not be protected by FERPA or FOIA. So it's letting them know that that could occur and it may not be something we control.
So with that said, why are we're putting in the handbook before we all agree to the process, right? Isn't that putting it out there too soon?
If at the next meeting you say, hey, we don't want this in here, we don't have to put it in there,
Okay.
right? So you've got time to talk to each other and come back to the table and say, we approve everything, but we don't want that in there.
Okay, that's why I was trying to are we authorizing that we are mandating it, or if it's just a awareness to the community?
This came out of a number of conversations that I've had either in committee or in conversations about the work that we're doing. And it basically was suggested, again, just like in November, even though it didn't go so well in November because people came and said, I didn't do a good job sharing that. It was just trying to create the awareness that if something happens, we may have to report that, and we just wanted to be transparent, right? So that's it. And if you don't want us to be transparent in that way, that's okay, but we're just trying to do that because we heard from the board that we might want to be transparent.
So if we request, like, on your monthly superintendent update or your weekly superintendent update, that you could put that in there monthly, just reminding parents, because really the goal is to get the parents involved so that it stops, right? It's not to kind of put it off to the side that, you know, your kid's name can be given to the Department of Justice. It's like, hey, let's get involved, make sure you know, let your child know that their name can be given to the Department of Justice. I mean, I think that if we can add that to your superintendent update so that parents know that it's there and keep them reminded of it, because everyone's busy and, you know, people forget to remind their children. So that's what I would suggest. I have another question about dress code. So I thought that there was something in here about costumes, that your children are all wear costumes on an off day other than, you know, something that's, you know, related to Dr. Seuss or, you know, Halloween or something like that. Did we remove that? Did I miss that?
If something was removed, it would have been shown up as a strike through.
No, before, like last year. Wasn't that removed last year or something? I mean,
They're just the changes.
Right, but it says that this is the current language and being moved from the old discipline rubric to, so this is the current language, so it's not in here, so I'm just wondering, when that, like, can we add that back in? Is that something we can
I would have to
talk
research
about?
that for you.
Okay,
All right?
Do you guys want to connect and then
Yeah.
figure that out?
Lastly, on the discipline rubric you touched on, I was a little confused on the elementary one. It says it's a whole new one, but it looked very similar, I think, what we have for farms. So is it, we're just applying the intermediate to elementary? Can you elaborate?
It's reformatted in a sense. So the rubric itself is reformatted to look similar to what's in place at the secondary and now being proposed for farms. So there is a rubric in the elementary handbook. It's been reformatted to look like this, what you have in front of you.
So basically
covering the disciplinary categories and you know, what could be the outcomes for first and subsequent referrals.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, moving on to item 3B, new and revised policies. These were sent to us from Neola. Obviously, if you guys have edits to the policies, please get them to me so I can get them to the rest of the board for consideration. And I believe there's a summary page on the policies and what the changes are. But if you could give me any edits in the next 2 weeks so that I could then get them to the rest of the board, that's very, very helpful.
I would like to take a look at this 8800, the very last patriotic activities and observances, they've struck out United States flag and Pledge of Allegiance. I think I'd like to work on rewording that to keep it in there. I don't know why we would want to move that, but I can take a look at that and get those edits to you, Megan.
Perfect. I will send any edits out to the group so that everyone's aware and has the time to actually think about any proposed edits.
Megan,
Sure.
I think I can make that one the easy one. You can keep that one in there. I think they just struck it because
It adds
the topic is patriotic activities and observances, and
Right.
then they talk about flags, and they talk about everybody having the chance for the pledge.
moment of silence, they
Yeah,
added.
so we do all those things
Yes.
already, so I think that's an easy one.
Okay,
I'd like to bring up policy 6350, prevailing wage.
350. Yes.
Yeah.
You want to work on that one?
Well, it says the superintendent shall designate a prevailing wage coordinator. Now, is this just a set of duties that will be assigned to someone, or is this a brand new position?
No, this would be assigned to Rachel. Whenever we do bonds, whenever we do work, we have to, when we accept contracts, go out for bid, we have to understand the prevailing wages issue. So I would be assigning Rachel.
Okay. Very good.
Rachel, coordinator of
Yeah.
policy.
She looks thrilled.
Rachel is so lucky.
All right.
Sorry, I want to ask about the payroll deduction. So the question is, would it actually require that we withhold dues for a union even if a teacher is not part of the union, but there was also discussion of a form. So I didn't know if you had to fill out the form to actually get the deduction, or if we're mandating that we take the deduction.
So if you look at the policy, you can see the strikeout at the bottom of K there. So the bottom line is you can now, through the bargaining process, the association can ask us to do the payroll deduction, then we'd have to bargain a system in which individuals would have to present to us that they want to be involved in that system, and we couldn't just deduct without permission from the employee.
So, but they still have to opt in essentially
Yes.
to take advantage of this, right?
That would be the bargaining, we'd have to come up with bargaining language on this one, just because it was not permissible in the old way with the new payroll regulations. It's permissible, so we'd have to bargain on what that would look like.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, please, edits in 2 weeks, so that I can get them out to everyone else. Item 3C, food service equipment and kitchen upgrades. For discussion.
Okay, so that was me. So we recently issued 3 separate RFPs for various kitchen equipment throughout the high school, as well as for a walk-in cooler/freezer at the high school, and as well as for one at the middle school. All of the items that you see on the list, on the page attached, are the items that we have selected that are in the most dire need of replacement right now at this point. We have 7 kitchens feeding 2,000 kids breakfast and lunch a day. So while this looks like it's a lot of stuff, this is just a drop in the hat of the amount of inventory and equipment that we have throughout our district. We have a good opportunity to purchase these items right now with the fund balance we have available in the food service fund that has built up over time due to all of the various COVID relief, free meal programs and whatnot. And we are required to spend these dollars on food service related items. So these one-time purchases are a good way to get that fund balance down. because we are required to keep our fund balance at a certain level. We can't be over a certain level of fund balance in our food service fund, in which we are currently because of all these one-time dollars.
So would these be end of the year, like end of the school year purchases?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we will not get these items finished before June 30th, but they will be included in next year's budget cycle. And so next year in that budget cycle will be to the point of fund balance that we need to be after making these purchases. Yes. Also, as a side note, we were originally going to do the coolers both at the middle school and high school out of the sinking fund. But because there is funding available in the food service fund, we're able to free up that sinking fund for other projects and pay for these items here out of the food service fund.
Quick question too, is this in replacement for current equipment?
Yes.
Okay,
With the exception of, I believe, I'll have to ask Lisa, but I think the pizza oven might be a different, might be a new item, but for the most part, it's all replacing current items that have reached the end of their useful life.
okay, and we're not replacing something that we just got 2 years ago or
No.
anything like that? This is stuff that's legitimately in need of replacement?
Yeah, so these coolers, the high school was built 20 years ago, so that's about how old their equipment is. So
Gotcha.
it's coming up due to get it replaced. I'm not certain when the middle school walk-in was last done, but it's on the fritz and needs to be replaced.
Very good.
All right.
Rachel, just a question. I was going to ask you, and you mentioned it, the comment about the federal funding requirement. What exactly what metric do we have to hit for the fund balance?
So your fund balance can't be more than 3 months' worth of operating expenditures. Last year, that level was around $700,000. We were at $1.1 million. We'll have to gap of about $400,000 extra, which is how much this purchase essentially is to get that fund balance down.
What's the
That's
penalty?
a federal requirement. Finding on your audit report.
Okay.
I don't want one of those.
No. No, we don't want to
But, you
break
know,
your streak of
Right. I don't wanna break my streak.
unmodified or whatever the top level is there, so.
Well, this would be a hit on our federal awards audit, since
Okay.
it's a federal program, but I will also share that this is a problem with every single school district in the state of Michigan. And because of the programs that have been in place the last 4 years. So it's been a kind of a challenge as well because everyone's trying to buy equipment right now. And so it is taking longer to buy things, it's taking longer to get things in, it's taking longer to get things installed. So unfortunately, we'll likely have excess fund balance again this year because of the timing of when we can get this done. But by next year, end of next year, we should be in the clear.
Thank you. Question on the walk-in cooler. And it was noted that one of the vendors didn't, their bid was not within scope. Can you talk a little bit about what didn't meet
Yep.
the scope?
So when you bid for these items, specifically with food service equipment, you have to specify a certain manufacturer and a certain brand. You want XYZ brand, this model, this make. They did not provide a bid for that same make and model. This was it sounded like a French-Canadian company. I don't know that they really understood our specs or our RFP entirely based on some of the questions that they asked. And so they did provide a bid for something far outside our scope. Dimensions I don't even think were the same, so.
Okay. You asked for an apple and got an orange? Okay, got it. Thanks.
All right. Item 3D, video capabilities. Mr. Gogolewski, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, just, it's kind of come to my attention from looking at board meetings from other districts and such that our, and this is no insult to anyone that does this work, but we really don't have as nice of a presentation or a recording as some other districts. For example, one of the things that we don't have any kind of view over speakers for the call to public. The one camera that we do have simply has the same view all the time. And I'm thinking that improvements in this wouldn't be that expensive.
Is there a district that you're very impressed with their video?
Very impressed with, maybe not very impressed with, but yeah, somewhat impressed. Looking at others, there seems to be closer views. There seems to be, again, too, talking about call to public, just something that might even provide better audio as well. Sometimes our audio kind of cuts out, or it has in the past anyway. I don't know if that's just the result of Zoom that we were using, or if that's our equipment or what have you. Many times the audio would not capture everything. So.
I would agree with Ms. Gogolewski in the fact that the current recordings prior to this last one, I know it is hard to see the board, even us, and I'm assuming the camera is sitting right there.
Right, yeah.
So I don't know what the fix would be or the cost, but I do know that in some cases, the recordings, they struggle to hear the public, and I don't know if that's just our public is not speaking into the microphone or what it may be, but I agree that we should look into something. I don't know what it cost would be or.
So like here on Valley, in Milford, like I watched their board a couple weeks ago, and they have a good system. You can see the speaker clearly, hear them, see the board members as they're speaking individually.
Yes.
So I don't know that we have to have a cameraman, but it's definitely something that is more engaging than just seeing our tiny heads and just this.
Colors.
Yeah, like,
Beetlejuice
So,
camera.
yeah. So
perhaps we can task Mr. Hughes to work with Mr. Usher on kind of some options that we might have, and pull together, Mr. Usher I think is gone, but perhaps you guys can work on some options for us, and then we can kind of go from there.
I think some other resources too could just be some fellow partners in progress with either the library board or the Hartland Township. They have different systems that they're using, so.
I could tell the library board is probably worse than ours.
Well, let's not mimic
It
the
is.
library board.
I don't know that I would say that, but.
Well, they stopped doing video anyway,
Okay.
the library, but that was, in fact, I think the reason why they stopped was the fact that the quality was so poor. So,
Well, perhaps a switch to YouTube might make the audio better, but ideally we could get something better for our camera. I agree too, so I just don't know
Okay.
cost or who.
right.
So
And I
I'm
guess
sure
on-
Mr. Usher has some ideas.
On the subject of YouTube, I guess, I have some concerns that they may block a video or censor a video, or, I mean, what assurances do we have that they may not deem some content inappropriate and therefore we lose access to our own school board video? What's the
We can ask
guarantee
you.
that doesn't happen? Do we have to have a separate copy hosted on our servers? I guess those are some other considerations I would ask for us to look into, just so we
I think we should
don't
ask.
lose out on our videos.
Do you want to send any of your questions, and then Mr. Usher can make sure that as he's developing a new process or a new way forward, that all of those can be taken into consideration and asked?
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
All right, item 4A, future meetings. We do have a meeting on June 17th at 6:30 right here. Item 4B, does anyone have any informational items?
I just want to make a comment. I know that one of the parents spoke about the reading services we provide, and it's really important to me as well. So hopefully that we can get something done and remedy that. So I appreciate that very much, bringing that to our attention, and I hope that we do something to fix that. And that was all. Thank you.
Graduation is May 31st down at EMU, so those of you that have kiddos graduating or family members, or you just want to see a ton of students walk across and get their diplomas, it's really exciting, and we hope to see the community there supporting our graduates. All right, item 5. Sorry.
July 22nd
Oh,
for
yeah.
your July meeting.
Does that, so July 22nd for an organizational meeting, I need everyone to check their calendars just to ensure that that actually jives with everyone's schedules. If you have any Conflicts, if you could get me any conflicts by June 1st, so that we have time to reschedule that.
So Renee and I talked about this. The reason why we picked July 22nd is because of the 4th of July week, and then the busyness and trying to get the board packet and everything else, and it just seemed like it would be better to do the 22nd to give us time.
Did you want us to do that now? Because I don't have my phone with me.
Gosh, no, please, I don't have my
Okay.
calendar with me either, I have 17 of them. But any conflicts, please get to me by June 1st. Item 5, closed session, superintendent evaluation, and we do have our moderator here with us as well.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the request of the superintendent and the recommendation of the board president, enters into closed session to discuss the superintendent evaluation.
Support. Motion by Mrs. Shaw, support by Mrs. Coleman. Any discussion?
Yeah, I guess I do want to have a quick discussion. I have some concerns in reading the actual statute for the Open Meetings Act, and to me, it's not perfectly clear that this meeting today would actually qualify for one of the items that would afford us the opportunity to go into closed session, and I think we had a member of the community point out some of those concerns as well. And so I think legally, I have concerns about voting, because we're not actually doing the evaluation. So I don't know, Megan, if you've already run this trap line or not, but.
Well, the legal concerns around it, obviously I've worked and been in conversation with our facilitator, who's well aware of the process that we're planning to roll out. And so perhaps he will be willing to speak more on that. And then I'm happy to get you something from through, but no one had sent me any questions for legal counsel review.
I guess I don't know that it was clear that this particular would be a closed session. So I know we've had discussions about next month's meeting being closed, but.
It says closed session, item 5, closed session superintendent's evaluation. So and I know our MSB consultant is here, so I can't imagine that us heading into closed session would violate something, and he would be a part of it. I mean, speculation, but, I mean, when I looked at the back, I saw closed session, so I knew tonight we were going in. So,
Well, considering that in the past we haven't done things properly, I think it's good that we clarify this first.
Can we get his input before we vote on it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I would request, because I think if we actually vote on it, isn't that, I just want to make sure that we're within the law. So, is it possible?
Provide some input? Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I apologize for putting you on the spot.
No worries. No worries at all.
Okay, so what specific concern can I address?
Because today's meeting is not actually to have the evaluation, so I'm trying to understand how this meeting to talk about the evaluation, not actually give the evaluation, how that qualifies under 8A in the statute.
So, getting across first and foremost that I am not legal representation for the Michigan Association of School Boards, and that I'm not speaking on behalf of, but I will tell you that we have been advised by Brad Banasic, who is generally considered to be one of the experts on the Open Meetings Act from across the state, that any discussion of the superintendent's evaluation, if the superintendent would prefer that that be in closed session, has the right to ask for that closed session or to discuss his evaluation, and that is what we're doing tonight. We are not conducting the full evaluation tonight. We've decided to break this into 2 parts. So part 1 will be tonight, where we will discuss the superintendent's self-evaluation, which is part of the evaluation process. And then the second part that we'll get together and talk about in June will be your opportunity as a board to discuss your side of the evaluation process with the superintendent. So we're taking that superintendent evaluation process, breaking it into 2 parts. There are some boards that do everything that we're doing tonight and in June in 1 meeting in closed session, but your board has selected, as have other boards in the state, to break this into 2 parts. So whether we do it in 2 parts or 1 part, we do have that ability to go into closed session to discuss superintendent evaluation.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the superintendent can request it.
Correct.
And who approves it? Obviously, it's not the board that
Yes.
approves it.
You as a board will now take a vote. Once a motion has been offered to go into closed session, you as a board will then take a vote on to whether or not you want to go into that closed session. It is generally our recommendation that boards honor the request of the superintendent to go into closed session to discuss his evaluation, just as the superintendent would honor the request of any of his staff members to discuss their evaluation, in a private meeting. And so, again, it is not something that you have to do as a board, but it is something that we recommend you honor his request to go into closed session to discuss the evaluation, just as you would, expect any discussion of an evaluation perhaps in your workplace or in this workplace be conducted in a closed session or in a private session as well.
So if I heard correct though, according to the MASB attorney, it's 100% legal to have this meeting even though we're not giving the actual result to Mr. Hughes?
This is part of the evaluation process. The evaluation process can be conducted in a closed session if it is at the request of the superintendent and then approved by the board.
And Greg, I'm happy to follow up again. I had no ability to follow up with that question, so I can get something too. I'm happy to reach out to Brad tomorrow or ask that Brad reach out to you. All right, any further discussion?
Yeah, I just have a question. So Chuck, you obviously requested to do this in closed session. Can you explain why?
Yeah, I can explain why. You as the Board of Education represent the people of the community. Through the people, you are the board. No one member is more important than the whole board. And because it's an evaluation, just like I would with all of my charges, I wouldn't evaluate them in public. You're gonna have some information in front of you. You're gonna have opportunity in the process to give me feedback from your perspective that doesn't need to be in the public. You as the board represent them. You've been elected to represent them. You'll go behind doors and you'll have those conversations and you'll evaluate me privately like I would anybody else in the evaluation process.
But again, this meeting isn't that, right? We're not evaluating you today.
Right.
The self-evaluation is part of the evaluation process. We will then, you guys will have 30 days, or we will in theory have 30 days, it might be 31 days, whatever it looks like, to then do our own evaluation. I think it's really, in my opinion, and everyone can disagree with me, but I think giving us time to actually digest the self-evaluation and each individual is probably prudent as part of this process versus trying to cram it in at one night at 8:30 p.m. to try and say, okay, we did an effective evaluation in a couple hours.
But again, for me, the issue is having it as a closed meeting and whether that's legal. That's I think the question. And I'm not, no disrespect, but I'm not comfortable with that explanation given how it conflicts with what's on the MASB website. So for me, I don't.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote and you can certainly. Any additional discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Gogolewski?
No.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
No.
Mrs. Blondeel?
I'd have to say no for now.
And I'm a yes, that motion passes. I do want to let the public and those listening on YouTube know that we are going to shut down the YouTube. We don't know how long we're going to be in closed session. There will be no action taken after closed session. We will come back to just adjourn. So those of you who are on YouTube or in the room, you're more than welcome to stay to watch us then adjourn the meeting, but I don't want people to stay thinking that there's anything that's going to happen afterwards. You are free to go home. And for all the staff that are here, likewise, please go home.
We're going to go down to the special ed conference room.